This is WEFT Champaign, 90.1 FM, community radio for East Central Illinois. Streaming live at www.weft.org. The views and opinions expressed here are those of the speakers and do not necessarily represent those of WFT, its board of directors, associates, its station manager, or Prairie Air Incorporated. The following program was pre-recorded and consists of two parts. The first part was recorded in 2011. The second part was recorded on January 31st, 2016. Welcome to Weekend Heartbeat. I'm Sean David, and this is A New Lamp.
New lamp for old. New lamp for old. Remember how Aladdin headed out to get oil for his mother's old dented, tarnished lamp? And in the market he met a magician calling out these words. This strange man was offering to give him a brand new shiny lamp for his old one. That's what I want to offer you, if you'll have it. A new lamp of spiritual guidance. But maybe you already have such a lamp, which still burns brightly. Great. You are still welcome to join us simply to learn who we are. But maybe your lamp of divine guidance has gotten dented and tarnished like Aladdin's. Or perhaps you have no such lamp at all. To you, I offer a new lamp. Hi, my name is Marilyn. Welcome to A New Lamp, a program designed to make you acquainted with the Baha'i religious faith. I hope you will choose to spend the next few minutes with me. Thanks.
Oh my Lord, I am a child of tender years. Nourish me from the breast of thy mercy. Train me in the bosom of thy love. Educate me in the school of thy guidance, and develop me under the shadow of thy bounty. Deliver me from darkness, make me a brilliant light. Free me from unhappiness, make me a flower of the rose garden. Suffer me to become a servant of thy threshold, and confer upon me the disposition and nature of the righteous. Make me a cause of bounty to the human world, and crown my head with the diadem of eternal life. Verily, thou art the powerful, the mighty, the seer, the hearer. art the mighty, the seer, the hearer, the powerful.
There are many things that we in the U.S. take for granted. Education is one of these things. There are yet throughout the world many areas where the children go uneducated and in this condition can be led as lambs into the depths of human degradation. Baha'u'llah makes it mandatory that all children be educated. All should learn arts, crafts, sciences, and all those things which will help them become the best they can be in order to be able to meet their physical requirements and to uplift the state of humankind. With all this worldly education, they must also be spiritually educated. Knowledge without wisdom that comes from God is dangerous indeed. Better an uneducated man who loves God than the genius who uses his knowledge for his own greed, fame, fortune, and power. Baha'u'llah emphasizes the need for girls particularly to be educated, for they are the first teachers of the children. This means you, mother, not grandma, the babysitter, or daycare. Grandma has already done her child rearing, which requires the energy of youth to keep up with small children. Do not have children if you don't intend to dedicate those several years to being with them. Career will be waiting for you when the little ones no longer need you. With today's lifespan, there's time for both. Trying to multitask mothering and career usually produces poor results, which has become more and more obvious in today's society. Obviously, I'm not talking to that mother who must raise and financially support her children alone. God help her.
I have found Baha'u'llah in the early days of my life. He is in my heart now and forever. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, now and forever. I have found Baha'u'llah in the early days of my life. He is in my heart now and forever. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, now and forever.
Many fathers today are becoming more sensitive to the fact that the mother's day-to-day task of child care becomes very tiring and are developing closer relationships with young children. But dad's role becomes more important as the little ones become adolescents. Often during these years, the older children need the type of discipline that requires tough love. Fathers have so much to teach their children during these years about being a man or woman of virtuous character, trustworthy, God-fearing. And of course, our children learn the most by observing us. But we need to be there so they can do just that. Baha'u'llah gives to the fathers the responsibility of seeing that the children receive all the schooling they need to nurture them to their fullest. But even more importantly, the father is to provide spiritual education. Here again, example is the best teacher. If children see both parents studying the sacred writings, it will become natural to the entire family to follow suit. We might do all sorts of interesting or important things with our life, but none will be more important than raising an educated, spiritual family. I believe it was Winston Churchill said, "The hand that rocks the cradle rules the world."
All the stars set on the hill, all the pages read, and all of God's children upon their head. All the birds are in their nest, everything is said, and all of God's children tucked in bed with a light upon their head. All the rivers in the land are curling round, to every county moonbeams dancing over ground, too many for counting. Flounder in the tide, all the babies fed, and all of God's children tucked in bed with a light upon their head. All the stars set on the hill, all the pages read, and all of God's children tucked in bed with a light upon their
The education and training of children is among the most meritorious acts of humankind and draweth down the grace and favor of the All-Merciful. For education is the indispensable foundation of all human excellence, and alloweth man to work his way to the heights of abiding glory. If a child be trained from his infancy, he will, through the loving care of the Holy Gardener, drink in the crystal waters of the Spirit and of knowledge, like a young tree amid the rilling brooks. And certainly he will gather to himself the bright rays of the sun of truth, and through its light and heat will grow ever fresh and fair in the garden of life. Abdu'l-Baha. Thanks so much for being with me this morning. I hope you have found a blessing during these few minutes. If you want to learn more about the Baha'i religion, you can go online to www.bahai.us. To contact me, my email address is ANewLamp@yahoo.com. Thanks, and have a great day. Good afternoon, and welcome back to this portion of A New Lamp. And our guests for today are Renee and Halim Beer.
Thanks.
Hi, Liam Marday. Hello, Sean.
Hi, Sean.
All right. Well, we're looking forward to this very much. What we usually do, first of all, is we'd like our listeners to know a little bit about who you are. Would you like to start, Renee?
Sure. I'm originally from Ohio. I moved out to California for a few years after I finished school for work, and that's where I met Halim. So I went out there to actually do a reporting job.
Okay.
I was a TV reporter first, and then a newspaper reporter.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and then quite a big change because now I'm an IT project manager. So I've already done a couple different things. But anyhow, that's Halim's hometown in California.
Yep.
Oh,
And
okay.
so he was there finishing up school, and that's how we met. And we lived out there. I lived out there for 3 years before we came here when he started school.
What town was it, did you say, that you were in
Northern
California?
Way Northern California. Is some people think San Francisco is Northern California, but for myself and those from my hometown, we think that's kind of funny because San Francisco is more Central California. Northern California, Eureka is on the coast in Humboldt County in the middle of the redwood forests.
Really?
So, yeah, it's a beautiful area.
Ooh.
Very far north.
Yeah, like an hour south of Oregon.
Yeah.
So we've been here about 7 years, and we came here for Halim to start his graduate studies.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been here ever since.
That's right. We came here for, I started my master's program in music composition. So maybe I should start at the beginning. So as Renee said, we met in California, in Northern California in the Redwood Forest. So I was born and raised there. And I was born a Baha'i, so I've been a Baha'i my whole life. I went to various schools. My sister moved to Spain, so there were a few summers where I lived in Spain over the summer. I taught English in Prague for a small spell. But I had gone back to California to finish my undergraduate studies in violin performance and music composition, and that's when I met Renee. And when I finished my undergrad, that's when I applied, and then I came here and I did my master's and my doctorate here.
And you plan to stay?
Yeah, I think we do like it here.
Great.
Yeah.
Now, you were saying about you've done a lot of media work. Was that what you went to school for? Was that your schooling?
Yeah, I studied communication with an emphasis on broadcasting and also Spanish. So that was what I thought I wanted to do. And to be honest, I really enjoyed it. TV was really fun to make. It just wasn't something I wanted to do long term because the lifestyle is quite difficult
Yes.
for people who want to have a family. I enjoyed my stint in broadcasting.
Yes.
And
I'll bet it was fun.
It was very fun. It was great I really loved really connecting with the community, knowing all the local business owners, politicians. I mean, everybody in the community who was really active, you really got to know. So
Anybody who was anybody, you knew them.
Yeah, exactly. I joke with Halim about how I knew his hometown actually better than he did because I just knew so many people. And I really got to know it well in that short time I lived there.
Yeah, it was absolutely true. She knew my hometown better than I did. I stayed home and tried and practiced my violin.
Okay. Okay, now you've mentioned your children. Let's hear a little bit more about your children.
Yeah, so we have 2 kids. Our daughter, Roya, she turned 4 in December. And our son is about 21 months. He'll be 2 in May.
2 in May,
So
okay.
they're at really fun ages. You know, they're lots of work and lots of fun at the same time.
Yes. Well, I was a stay-at-home mom, which was typical in my generation, as was my mother. And so though eventually I went out into the career world, but there's a lot to be said for being at home with the children. And I'm sure you have to make accommodations to be able to have the time and energy, Renee, to be able to spend with your children.
Yeah.
You're working full-time.
Yeah, I think we've come to that conclusion. I don't think before we had kids or when we were brand new parents, we really realized how much we value that time with our kids, you know, and how we really like that we've always had them only in part-time care or now Halim being home with them all the time. We just really find that that's important. I don't know that we thought that before we actually had them.
Somebody else isn't raising them.
Right. Yeah. So that works for us. And I know for everybody, there's different situations and different things work for different families. But I think that's the conclusion we've come to is we're really fortunate and really happy to have Halim at home.
It's really interesting because Before we spoke about it and consulted about this, it was intellectual. It was theoretical. Oh, well, maybe they can be in daycare, but it helps with her finances, or part-time daycare. Well, once they are actually in part-time daycare, they were in 3 days a week. It blew our minds on a day when they went to daycare. I felt like half of their lives were suddenly hidden away from us. And that's really difficult. What's happening during that time? You ask the teachers, how did they do? And they say, oh, she had a good day. Great, thanks. Like, I have no idea what her life is like.
Right.
Yeah.
And during those very early years, it's the most important. And
It really is.
This is what they learn now is what's going to stay with them all their life.
Yeah, and the whole experience of being a parent is very humbling, and it's an incredible learning experience like none other. And I say incredible to also mean frustrating and joyful and exciting, and all of these things, but they're definitely very difficult aspects. But I think lots of people understand how sometimes those difficult things in life can be the most rewarding.
Right.
They could be the things that induce the most growth. And I think parenthood very clearly falls in that category.
We kind of joke about, like, well, as parents, there's a lot of suffering that comes with it. So what an opportunity for growth, right? Like, what an opportunity that other people maybe who don't have children, that maybe they don't have, is that that opportunity. So it's good sometimes to remember that.
Right.
When
Absolutely. It's a teaching experience that you cannot teach somebody who hasn't been there.
Exactly, yeah.
It is a challenge as a new parent. And in the context of the Baha'i writings and the Baha'i teachings, and frankly, all the religious traditions, you look at Buddhism, you need to be selfless. It's about giving up your selfish desires and to acquire virtues and to manifest virtues. And in the Baha'i writings, over and over, you find be selfless, give up these limited selfish viewpoints that we have, and be world embracing and embrace with love humanity and the interests of the world. And it's difficult. That's a difficult growth process. It's something that we all struggle with. But becoming a parent has one of its greatest challenges is that it forces an incredible this selflessness that I've never been forced to experience before in my life. You have the need to sleep. Doesn't matter if you have the need to sleep, right? Guess what? If your newborn infant has a need, you will sacrifice that need to sleep in order to provide for the needs of that child. And this happens at every turn. And that process of selflessness clearly isn't fun. But from the viewpoint of the Baha'i writings and the religion and spiritual growth, one realizes, wow, well, what an amazingly painful spiritual gift, right? It's difficult and it's incredible, the kind of selflessness that it makes you go through, the sacrifices that a parent must endure for their children. And frankly, it's a perspective that I try to remind myself of, because again, it's not necessarily simple.
All growth is painful.
That's true.
No matter what. And people who choose not to have children for whatever reason, they are going to miss part of a growth portion of their life that I don't know where else you'd pick that up.
So I can't blame people for not having children. We just heard the program on life after death. We're looking at eternal life, right? We're looking at the life of the spirit that will continue on long after the mortal frame has disintegrated. But again, spiritual growth is not the short-term benefit. It's not instant gratification in a world full of instant gratification. Spiritual growth is the long-term, right? And having that long view is sometimes it makes the short-term decisions a little bit more difficult. You sacrifice certain things in the short term.
Oh, well, hey, you started to say something about your Baha'i history. I know you've got an interesting story. Renee, why don't you tell us about how it happened that you found the faith and how he was involved.
Sure. Well, I grew up, like I said, in Ohio, a very strong Catholic area, and I grew up a Catholic, and I felt pretty content, I thought, as a Catholic. So when I moved out to California, I found a Catholic church, and as a young, single person at that time, I had time on my hands, so I was trying to find ways to volunteer and be active in that church. Though I found I was kind of struggling to find a place where I really fit in. I tried a few things. I was a youth group volunteer, I think. That was kind of the main thing I was doing. And I was doing that, and I just, I always I didn't know it at the time. I couldn't have identified it at the time. But in retrospect, I was always sort of searching for something, searching for a place to fit in, or I just, I kind of just felt like I never quite found that. And I wouldn't have said I was dissatisfied as a Catholic, I don't think. I had a pretty good experience, but in retrospect, it's like, no, but I knew there was more. And I just didn't know what.
Yes.
And so anyhow, that's kind of the backstory. And what happened then was I met Halim, and, we became friends and started hanging out. And he, of course, being raised Baha'i, told me about the faith. Very, very generally.
Well, I might interject for a second here.
Sure.
So I was raised Baha'i. However, when I was in, I think, 7th, 8th grade, my parents separated and they divorced. And of course, at that point, I'm the youngest of 3, and I was getting to that age where I was becoming more independent around 8th grade. So it was a natural transition where all of a sudden everyone was doing their own thing, and religion stopped being the center of our family life. So basically, I became inactive in the faith, and I was nervous about that. However, I had some Baha'i books on my bookshelf, and you saw them.
Well, I remember asking you about your religious background, and
okay.
And so you gave me kind of an intro, and I was like, "You're what?" As lots of people, they've never ever heard of the word Baha'i, and it's just like, "What is that?" And you're describing it to me a little bit, and I'm like, and I think you said it's like being Christian, and I'm like, that doesn't sound like Christianity, and you're like, well, it's not. I remember we had a very funny conversation where I was just trying to piece it together, and you were trying to explain it, but you were trying to be very gentle and kind of not.
I was.
You were being very cautious, yeah.
I remember being very cautious.
And so it piqued my interest. We really didn't talk about it very much that initial time, but as Halim said, he had a lot of Baha'i books and things at his house, and so basically I would look at them. And I decided to read Release the Sun. I don't remember. I think you maybe recommended it to me, which is a short history of the early years of the faith. And when I read that book, I just knew it was true. It just really spoke to me. And I kind of thought, wow, like I want to know more about this. And so what I ended up doing was, Halim is, a Baha'i, but not super active at that point.
Right.
And so I decided to call up the local community and go to a fireside. Like I wanted to know.
And let me explain that we're in my hometown.
Right.
I'd moved away and gone back to my hometown. So they were all the local Baha'is I hadn't spoken to in years, but I knew my entire childhood. I grew up with them, and I hadn't spoken to them for a while. So when Renee contacted local Baha'is, I was like...
Well, they all knew Halim, yeah.
They all knew me, but I hadn't seen them in many years,
yes.
right? Because I wasn't active in the community.
So basically I called and left a message, and they called me back and invited me to a fireside, and then I invited Halim to the fireside.
Yeah.
So I think...
Invited you back to your old place.
Yeah, and I think the rest is history, really. It was just kind of funny. We joke about how you taught me the faith, but then...
Well, I don't feel like I can say I taught Renee the faith because she brought me back to the faith. So
you introduced it to her.
I told her about it, and then she taught me the faith back.
And that is really neat.
Yeah.
That is so neat.
Very thankful for that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us find the faith in just the way you were saying that. I mean, I had been in a Protestant Christian for all my life, but also knew there was something I kept thinking, is there an underground church someplace that I'm not finding,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But you know, as soon as you pick up whatever it is you've picked up, that, my gosh, There it is. Just what I've been looking for.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful thing.
And I think like most or many Baha'is who were Christians before, of whatever denomination, it's so exciting. It's so exciting to find the faith, and all of these pieces just fall into place as far as progressive revelation, and recognizing all the manifestations of God from the other religions, and Baha'u'llah's word being the revelation for today, and unity, the message for today. It just made perfect sense, and I felt so much closer to Christ than I think I ever did as a Christian.
I've heard other people say that, and I felt that too. He suddenly had more meaning.
Yes.
It's one thing to believe, it's another thing to feel, to experience.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yes, finding Baha'u'llah, just all of a sudden you've found Christ also. It's a strange thing. And a joy.
Oh, absolutely.
A real joy. Now, let's see. We've heard about some of the things you have done. And Halim, your place of expertise is music.
Yeah. So I've played violin for much of my life, but when I studied music in college, and even before I entered college, but when I started studying, it was clear I wanted to study composition. I still played violin. I picked it up once in a while, but really I studied composition, and that's what I enjoy. I compose. I love music theory. This shocks some people sometimes to know that I actually like the music theory. I do actually love it. Genuinely.
He is into music.
Yes. Without irony, I like music theory. And it's interesting because, new music, or it's a very general term, but the kind of composition you study in the academia, in college, when you're studying composition, they're very eager to expand the ears of their composers. So you end up getting lots of music that can sound very strange and very alienating to some people. I've heard it described as plinky plonky by some, which is a rather hilarious description. Very abstract. Sometimes I've heard it described as unlistenable, right? As music that's not meant to be listened to, but to be studied. But there is a lot of new music that is very engaging and really is very gripping, but is still trying to break some sort of barriers and to not simply dwell in this traditional world of what is popular music, right? Or even the Mozart or Beethoven sound. And as a Baha'i, where it says that music can be a stepladder for the soul.
Yes.
The music can help lift us up. I don't think it's at odds with the academia, but it can be difficult, right? Where, as a composer, I've always wanted to find music that can be uplifting and can really be a support for the spirit. But in the academia, it's very much an intellectual exercise.
Yes.
So as a Baha'i and being in composition, I still learned the things that they encouraged me to learn, and I still studied these systems of composition, and frankly, I found them incredibly interesting. But as far as finding my own voice, it's always been a struggle, because I've never been satisfied with just having some mathematical system that's really intellectually stimulating, but doesn't necessarily speak to the heart. Right. So as I've been composing, it's been a struggle for me to find ways that I can put that into my composition and yet still be successful academically.
Shall we listen to an example?
That would be great. What have you got for us today, Halim?
Yes. I think we can listen to a section of a piece that I wrote called The Fowler. And this was one of the first major compositions where I really made an attempt to embed my Baha'i faith somehow into the music. Now, how one does that, there's a lot of liberty. Well, in this case, it was a piece I wrote for that was in memory of of a friend of mine who committed suicide. I knew him in high school. It was shortly after we had graduated high school that he committed suicide.
Oh.
And at the time, I had written some simple melodies on the piano. Frankly, all of those things that I'd written at that time, I'm embarrassed about. But anyway, when I wrote them, they were my best attempts. And they were pretty simple, but I thought that they were pretty, and I showed them to lots of my friends. And this friend of mine, I showed these melodies to him, and he was always very supportive and actually would engage and talk to me about those melodies more so than almost anyone else, and actually would point out certain moments that were his favorite moments.
Really?
And so when I wrote this piece, I actually took those simple ideas and I completely recast them. And it was written for basically a small orchestra. It's like a small orchestra. They call it a chamber orchestra. It was performed by the Illinois Modern Ensemble, and I called it The Fowler. It comes from the Baha'i writings, and there's a hidden word that says, "O children of negligence, set not your affections on mortal sovereignty, and rejoice not therein. Ye are even as the unwary bird that with full confidence warbleth upon the bough, till of a sudden the fowler death throws it upon the dust, and the melody, the form, and the color are gone, leaving not a trace." And as this was about the death and the suicide of my friend,
Yes.
the fowler represents death, and the fowler casting the bird on the dust. And so in the piece, it happens in other pieces, there's this long tradition of using names and letters and translating them into musical pitches. It's something I do almost in every piece I compose. And this is one of the first times I did it. So throughout this piece, over and over again, I've used this motive of Baha, or Baha'u'llah. And I've translated that name into pitches and I've embedded it in. So the Fowler comes from the writings of Baha'u'llah. It's about the death of my friend. And the name of Baha'u'llah is embedded in this piece. And I think I can play a short excerpt. The piece is very long. It's about a 20-minute piece, but I only have about a 3-minute excerpt.
Glad to hear it. That is beautiful and powerful.
Well, thank you. A lot of times with new compositions, I'm not used to hearing the word beautiful, but I do appreciate that.
In my years, it's music that has always been what has brought me closest to God. And to have a some sort of a program without music is like somebody left out the soul. It's just that's
Like a program, like a devotional program, or pray, right? Without that musical
yeah.
aspect, this is something where I'm, as a composer, I know other musicians. There's Baha'i music, and there's all sorts. There's the Baha'i faith is unity and diversity,
Right.
And the diversity of the flowers in the garden gives it its beauty and charm. And we likewise have diversity in our expression of artistic values and and our styles of music, and it just enhances the beauty of humanity to show that, I'm not writing as many folk songs, but so I'll try to write some engaging orchestral music.
Right.
Maybe.
That is great. That's the best way to learn the writings, or to learn anything you want to actually memorize. Have it in music.
It's so easy to memorize.
That's something that we've really been trying to do with our kids,
Yes.
I think one thing, Halim has an incredible memory. You have so many quotes and so much of the writings memorized from your exposure as a child, because your dad was a very good teacher, and your dad was interested in memorizing that and really taught that to you. To this day, it still impresses me how much you really remember and how much he really knows. So we're trying that. Hopefully we'll succeed at getting Roya and Darius to learn some of the writings.
Yes.
And music is a great avenue to do that, because it just sticks with you
Absolutely.
when it's in a song. And sometimes I find him even reading something, and then all of a sudden, oh, actually I know that part set to music, and I kind of hear it play in my head. But it's effective. And so we've been doing that kind of every night before bedtime. We sort of have that routine with our kids where we want them to recite prayers, but we also will do a prayer set to music and a quote set to music.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
Those will stay with them all their days.
Well, we hope.
And Renee's been very good at doing research and finding these children's lessons that have quotes in some music, and even, many of the songs are original, but it's fantastic just having some quote and a prayer set to song, and you go over the song and you have it memorized so quickly. It's amazing. And I've been able to bring a lot of those materials as part of a service to the community. We call it Little Gems Virtue Club. And it's for parents with children. Typically the ages are between 0 and 4.
Okay.
So very, very young children. And it's just, I take some of these songs that Renee's found, but I'll find other songs, and I just find children's books, and I try to choose a virtue. And the idea is you have songs and some stories, but you just choose a virtue: kindness, generosity.
Yes.
And it's at the Baha'i Center, but I'm actually careful to try not to put too many things about even God in it. Of course, I'm fine with it. But there are other parents who who maybe they aren't part of a religion. Maybe they're a little more suspicious. But all of them appreciate when we have a children's class and we sing songs about helpfulness.
Yes.
And we read stories about being helpful. And then we have a little craft about being helpful. And that's a small way that just trying to serve the community, and you get to make friends as well.
Yeah, of course. I was going to say I don't attend, but it sounds very laid back and kind of a relaxed environment that everyone is welcome.
Yeah, everyone is welcome. In fact, if any of our listeners are interested, I would say email. What is it? A New Lamp? Is that the email address?
A new lamp at yahoo.com.
So, what other music have you got that you can let us hear today?
I think a good example will be a piece I wrote for my daughter. So my daughter's named Roya, so I called the piece Roya, and it was inspired by just the experience of becoming a father. It was performed by an ensemble called Oni Suono. It's French, so I'm probably butchering the pronunciation. OGNI is Oni, and Suono is SUONO. They have a website, and they're absolutely phenomenal performers. And they perform almost exclusively newly composed pieces. They commission pieces from composers. So you can imagine
Really?
most of the pieces they play are incredibly different. If you go to their website, you'll hear lots of examples. Well, I wrote them a piece that's very delicate. And I was afraid, actually, that they might not have liked it. Well, it turns out that they've done an amazing job. They've played it all over the United States multiple times. They premiered it in Europe.
Really?
They've taken it on tour like 2 or 3 times in Europe. They told me, though, it's a great piece to have in their repertoire, specifically because it gives contrast. That they can
Yes.
program it with other things, and they show a range of different compositions. So thankfully they found use for it. And I could speak a long time about the piece. I won't, other than I actually used computer algorithms to generate music that I then actually changed by hand, and it doesn't sound like it was computer generated in any way. This tries to walk this line between being very delicate and kind of pretty in a traditional way, but there are lots of kind of mathematical games that I play in the music that are inspired by much of my composition training.
Okay.
It's about an 8-minute piece. Again, the excerpt I have is much shorter. It's about 4 minutes.
Hey, you know what? That was like Roya. It was delicate, and she's outgoing and fun. She's a beautiful little girl, and that was delightful.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It was inspired by her, so that's part of. Well, there are aspects of her personality that I wasn't aware of when I wrote the piece. But part of it was there was a little bit of rambunctiousness.
Yes,
there.
I was going to say.
Oh, yes.
I'm hearing is a rambunctiousness.
Yeah, so there's it alternates these swings in the piece between delicate and actually much more simple idea. I take this simple idea and I repeat them all during these very calm, delicate sections with moments of silence in there. So it's written into the music to pause and to let the sound die away so that there's silence. And then it always swells up again with these activities that end up becoming a little more rambunctious.
Right.
So.
Okay. Well, let's see. What we usually do is end our time with some readings from the faith. But before we do that, I'd like to take a look at some of the upcoming events that will be taking place at the Baha'i Center in Urbana.
This month, regularly scheduled events at the Baha'i Center are going to be a little different as Baha'is all around the world celebrate the Light of Unity Festival. In Champaign-Urbana, Baha'is will be celebrating two major events. On Saturday, October 21st at 1 p.m. at Starkle Planetarium at Parkland College, a philanthropist, U of I graduate, and tech entrepreneur, founder of Paylocity, Steve Sarowitz, will be speaking as the executive producer of a new documentary film about the Bab, the prophet herald of the Baha'i faith. Mr. Sarowitz will show clips on the planetarium dome as he tells the dynamic story of the making of the film and shares his motivation for its creation. A full-dome sky show will precede the talk. The second event in the Light of Unity Festival will be the Light of Unity Concert, which will take place on Sunday, October 22nd at 2 p.m. in Follinger Auditorium, which is in the south end of the U of I Quad. The Light of Unity Concert is a concert of original chamber music composed by Dr. Halim Beer. Dr. Beer is a graduate of the University of Illinois School of Music. The concert will feature vocalist Wendy Mark, a professional chamber orchestra, and a narration that recounts the story of Baha'u'llah. Other regular events taking place at the Baha'i Center will include Sunday devotions on the 22nd of October at 10:30 a.m. Devotions at the Baha'i Center include interfaith readings as well as readings from Baha'i scriptures. On Tuesdays at 7 p.m. at the Baha'i Center, there will be another devotional program led by Joan Mills. Because of the Light of Unity festivities, there will be no regular devotional program or game day held on October 22nd at the Baha'i Center. Instead, both devotions and game day will be postponed until Sunday, October 29th. All of these events are open to the public and are free of charge. The Baha'i Center is located at 807 East Green Street in Urbana, a few blocks to the east of Lincoln Square, and it is wheelchair accessible.
Okay, and as Halim pointed out, there are the little children's classes.
We call it Little Gems Virtue Club.
Okay.
And I would recommend that someone not just show up, but if they email you, then they could be put into contact personally with me.
Okay.
And I announce it every time it happens. And right now it's been a little bit spotty. But,
Okay.
okay.
All right. We have enjoyed so much having you folks with us today. And you've provided us a lot of good information, good music, things about family and about faith. And it has just been wonderful having you here.
Thank you, Marilyn and Sean. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
It's been fun.
We like to finish up the program with readings from the Baha'i Faith. Would you join us for those?
Yes, of course.
Absolutely.
God has not created men that they should destroy one another. All races, tribes, sects, and classes share equally in the bounty of their Heavenly Father. The only difference lies in the degree of faithfulness, of obedience to the laws of God. There are some who are as lighted torches. There are others who shine as stars in the sky of humanity. The lovers of mankind, these are the superior men, of whatever nation, creed, or color they may be. For it is they to whom God will say these blessed words, "Well done, my good and faithful servants." Abdu'l-Baha.
There can be no doubt whatever that the peoples of the world, of whatever race or religion, derive their inspiration from one heavenly source and are the subjects of one God. Baha'u'llah.
They who are the beloved of God, in whatever place they gather and whomsoever they may meet, must evince in their attitude towards God and in the manner of their celebration of His praise and glory such humility and submissiveness, that every atom of the dust beneath their feet may attest the depth of their devotion. Baha'u'llah.
Thank thou God that thou art instructed in music and melody, singing with pleasant voice the glorification and praise of the eternal, the living. I pray to God that thou mayest employ this talent in prayer and supplication, in order that the souls may be quickened, the hearts may become attracted, and all may become inflamed with the fire of the love of God. Abdu'l-Baha.
To find out more about Baha'i events taking place in Champaign-Urbana, or if you'd like to listen to previous New Lamp programs, you can go online to www.cu-bahai.org. Or if you would like to learn more about the Baha'i national and international community, go to www.bahai.us. Thank you again for joining us today. I hope you'll join us again next month. Goodbye.
Thanks for listening to this week's Weekend Heartbeat on WEFT Champaign 90.1 FM, Community Radio, Champaign-Urbana, Illinois, streaming live at www.weft.org.